Welcome to part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, then I recommend you look at that one first. Next one, embedding new patterns of thinking. Actually, the previous example was also an example of this. I had to teach the client that her wishes were independently valid. She didn't have to make them take second place to her husband's or her 14-year-old sons or anyone else. Her opinions were uniquely valid. She has a right to a life of happiness. She is not bound for a life of subservience and service to others. Um, it's just astonishing as a life coach to see how frequently solidly embedded patterns of thinking stay with people for most of their lives, and they're wrong, but they inform the client of the course of action they should take. So this lady couldn't see that, well, if I don't do his paper round, he's going to give me a hard time, so therefore I have to do his paper round. Wrong answer. It's entirely possible to either take the hard time or even more radically step up a notch and give him a damn hard time for trying to give her a hard time and expecting her to do his paper round for him. In subtle ways and in gross ways, we maintain the status quo. This is something I mentioned earlier on about we're all complicit in any stable situation, even if it's I know this will offend some people, but even if it's domestic abuse or a bullying boss at work, if it continues over time, there is some sense in which we are to blame, or at least complicit in the whole situation. I'm not saying that there are no such things as victims, but I am saying that in all cases there are courses of action you can take, and if you maintain the situation, that is a choice. So, embedding patterns of new thinking and more healthy thinking and thinking that can empower a client is another of these things that life coaches do. Next one, rather more run of the mill, maintaining energy and positive attitude. It's natural human nature to, if you try to do something and it fails or it doesn't work very well or you meet unexpected problems, there's a slump, there's a disappointment, a depression, there's a drop in energy, and the temptation is to say, well, I tried that and it didn't work. Now, of course, almost anything that's worth doing, anything that's worth accomplishing, is going to be challenging, and you're going to need to work hard at it, and it's for sure not going to work the first time exactly as you expected it to. Life seldom moves in straight lines. So a critical role of the coach is to show up every week, refresh the goals, check that we still want those goals, check the strategy we're following, to talk about the problems that arose, and again, to move back to this thing up here, to stop focusing on the problems, certainly acknowledge the problems, but with a view to developing strategies that will move us to our goals and remove the problems. So that's very important, maintaining a positive attitude and lots of energy, which is necessary in freeing up any difficult situation. Now that's a powerful set of attributes. Those are not available to anyone on their own. The coach brings those into the world of the client. You can't generally get most of these from your friends. You can get tea and sympathy, you can get some of them, but a coach will pack all of them into every coaching session, and that's a very powerful thing, and it's why people pay money for coaching sessions. And on that subject, it's worth talking a little bit about an attitude I see quite commonly, especially in British clients or would-be clients. There's this notion that we should be able to sort out our own problems, that if we seek help from someone else and for money, it's almost as derisory as prostitution. There's something pathetic about asking for help, but actually this is absolute nonsense. I've made extensive use of coaches in the past, and been much the better for it. I'm still reaping the benefits of some of my earlier coaching sessions. And if you look at film stars or the very rich, they hire gym training support people to knock on their front door, drag them to the gym, tell them to give me 3 more reps, whatever. Do they think they're pathetic? What they're doing is acknowledging that whilst their lives are wonderful, they could be better. They've grasped the torch of living life to the full. They now believe that they can have those wonderful things they've wanted, but they recognize that they don't necessarily have all of the resources within them that are needed to get there. But they do have a resource that they can turn into those other things, and that's money. They can exchange money for a personal gym trainer. And similarly, you can exchange money for a fashion consultant, an image consultant, a life coach, a cosmetic surgeon. All those things are fairly similar. So, as far as I'm concerned, coaching is a fantastic way of gaining external help in exchange for money, to bring you the things in your life that you want. Of all the ways life coaching works, though, I think the most impressive is in the area of limiting self-beliefs or self-limiting beliefs. We talked about this earlier on in the presentation, but it's such a big topic. It's actually the thing which sold me on life coaching in the first place before I became qualified and began to practice, was the role of limiting self-beliefs. And I'll spend a couple of minutes talking about that now. Firstly, what drives behaviour? I often ask people in group settings what they think drives behaviour, what determines what you'll do. And people say things like their motivation or their goals or their intellect. But in fact, none of those are true. What actually drives motivation is beliefs. What you believe, what you think you know about the world or about yourself. And most of us acquire most of our beliefs in childhood. And the reason that's such a shame is that in childhood we don't have intellects in which to filter beliefs. We just soak things up. So if dad says rich people are bad people, you soak it in, you believe it. If dad says you are a scrawny little weakling, aren't you, then you are. You simply accept it as a fact of the planet. You don't reject views when you're a child, you just soak them in. And so, consequently, our beliefs which we absorb in childhood are often wrong, and they're often negative. And astonishingly, we carry them through to adulthood, where they control our behaviour in various negative ways, and we don't even realise that that's what's happening. It's such a shame. The beliefs are often hidden. So, for example, our little scrawny kid may be very unconfident. His behaviour in school may have caused him to be reclusive, a bit of a misfit, and therefore he gets bullied. Now, this is where the cycle of self-fulfilling prophecy comes in. If you believe that you are scrawny and weak, then you will behave a certain way with the children around you, which will reinforce the notion that you're scrawny and weak. Now you have valid external information that says, yep, you are indeed scrawny and weak. And so the pattern is set, and that pattern may persist throughout your entire life. You have to find it to change it. Often we don't realise that it's these hidden beliefs. For example, the scrawny little kid who may be 40 now, all he really knows is that he doesn't get on well with people. And he has a body of evidence spanning decades to be completely certain that that is indeed the case. But he doesn't know where that came from or where it started. Finding that out can often be revelationary, a very important step forward in freeing up someone's future happiness. But it's very tough to do, and it's basically impossible to do on your own. You can't do it reading books, you can't do it through introspection, and it's very unlikely that any of your friends are going to be able to do it for you either. Okay, see you in part 3.